I love how the Vlog Brothers put up all these wonderful facts about Christmas. Well, I'm going to tell you the real facts that you really should know. First of all, this is about the birth of Jesus. And so therefore, we have to go back to Caesar Augustus, who was a direct relative of Julius Caesar, who was murdered. And you can read about that in William Shakespeare's plays. But it was Caesar Augustus who ordered the census in around 8 BC. And so therefore, we're talking about a census of all the land of Judea. And that meant that Joseph and Mary, Joseph being a carpenter at that time, and of course Joseph was a carpenter until the day he died, had to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Now he had to walk this. He was poor, okay? And it was a 3 to 4 day journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem. And around December of 8 BC, Jesus was conceived. Now, how do we get this whole figure of when Jesus was conceived? Well, we have to use the reference of John the Baptist to calculate the birth of Jesus. Because the birth of Jesus wasn't really recorded. It was John the Baptist that was. Now, John the Baptist was born around Passover time. So 6 months later, Jesus was born, so that meant that the birth of Jesus occurred around August of 7 BC, therefore making his conception around December of 8 BC. Alright? So that's how we get all these calculations. Now, when it came to Joseph didn't want to take Mary with him at first. Alright? He tried to get Mary to stay in Nazareth, but Mary did not want to stay alone while she was having the birth of Jesus, so he was finally convinced to take her with him. Now, God was the one who planted the seed in Mary. As a matter of fact, it was so bad on that situation that God had to send an angel to Joseph to convince him to get married to Mary. It was that simple. And so, there you have all the facts. Now, the other fact of the matter is that it was Herod the Great who ordered the execution of all the babies of Judea to try to kill the baby Jesus. Who was Herod the Great? He was appointed king of Judea around 40 BC by Mark Antony. He was the one who ordered the construction of the second Jewish temple. He was also the one who ordered the placement of a Roman eagle on top of the main gate of the Jewish temple. This enraged the Jews, and so the Jews tried to take this Roman eagle down. Well, all the Jews that tried to take this Roman eagle down were captured and subsequently burned alive for trying to do this. So it was no problem for Herod the Great to kill people. He had already done it many times before. Matter of fact, Herod the Great had killed a lot of his relatives. So, what happened to Herod the Great? Well, Herod the Great became sick. And so when he became sick, he was carried to his winter home of Jericho. And what happened was that from Jericho, he was carried to the hot springs of the Dead Sea. Now, there was a rumor about those hot springs in which some kind of an angel would come down periodically and would heal people who would get into the hot springs. Okay, you can check this out for yourself. Well, Herod went out for this. He went out to the hot springs, got himself dipped in the water. He didn't get healed. So he became incredibly depressed. He was returned back to Jericho, and he tried to commit suicide. Well, when he tried to commit suicide, he had already had one of his sons locked away in prison. Well, this son that was locked away started hearing this wailing. And he didn't understand that Herod the Great was still alive. He thought the wailing was because his father had committed suicide. Well, when he heard this, he tried to bribe the jailer to get himself out. Well, hey, my father's dead. Come on, let me out. Well, the jailer immediately went to Herod the Great and said, hey, look, your son just tried to bribe me to get him out of jail. Herod would have none of this. And Herod ordered the execution of his son. Well, shortly thereafter, Herod got even more depressed, and so he had a whole bunch of distinguished guys from the area of Judea locked into the hippodrome of Jericho. And he gave the order that when he died, the very second he died, these distinguished men were to be executed. Reason for this? He was no friend to the Jews. After all, he was the one who ordered the Roman eagle put on top of the main gate of the temple. So the Jews had no love for him. And so when he died, his order was never carried out. One of Herod's sons said, hey, look, you're not going to kill all these distinguished people in the hippodrome of Jericho. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Anyway, it was Herod Antipas, who happened to be one of the sons of Herod the Great, that tried Jesus. Okay? And these are just facts that you really should know. Some of these facts are told in the traditional Bethlehem story that you can find anywhere with any reverend. But some of these facts are just very well buried on the internet, and you have to really look these facts up. I thought you should know about them, and so I've told you. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Stay tuned.